48 hours left. Final escalation is scheduled. Putin wants to mobilize at least 200,000 soldiers more, and Russians are even preparing their kids for war. And seeing that things might go south very quickly, Chechens found a reason to abandon Bakhmut. But more about all of this in just a couple of minutes. What's up, investors? It's the Russian dude. And let's get straight to the point and talk about some ridiculous Russian propaganda. So, battle Babushkas are back. And this time they're making a video addressing the leader, let's say like this, the leader of North Korea, Kim Chen-in, and they're saying, Kim, our comrade, you're more than welcome to Russia. Let's establish political, diplomatic, economic and military relations, and our both countries will be the rulers of the world. They are also saying that the sister of Kim Chen-in, and pretty much at this point every single North Korean, is more than welcome to Russia, and if they cannot find temporarily apartments, they can live with these babushkas. They did not specify if they only accommodate one or all 10,000 of them or more, but this is what they said. So, what are the odds that Kim Chen-in will actually listen to them and come to Russia? Well, statistically it's somewhere around, I would say, 0%, but okay, yeah, let's give them a chance, and maybe we can give them something like 0.69%. And speaking about percentages, 48.4% of you guys are still not subscribed to the Russian Dude Army. So, I mean, yeah, it's a little bit improvement, but what, should I keep watching, keep staring you in the soul, begging for subscriptions until you actually do it? Okay, let's do it. Matt, Jack, Steven, Jeff, Ravi, Stefan, Maria, Andrea, Andrew, just subscribe to my channel, only takes literally one click. You can also follow me on Instagram to see how I live outside of YouTube. The link is down below. But okay, now let me give you a very quick update from the south, then we'll go to the east of Ukraine, and finally we'll talk about the next mobilization by Putin coming very soon. And our first video comes to us from Zaporozhye region, where Ukrainians using HIMARS system were able to destroy at least 5 Russian Buk air defense systems in one day alone. Next we go to Robotyne, where Ukrainians only using a first-person view drone dropped a nade on a Russian T-80 tank and were able to destroy it. And since Ukrainians over the last couple of weeks they were able to liberate Robotyne, their next major city in this direction is now Verbove, and at this point of this counter-offensive, the main goal of Ukrainians is to find another so-called hole in the Russian defenses, expand it, breach it, and then pretty much start liberating bigger territories. And even the report by the Institute for the Study of War confirms that Ukrainians, both in Bakhmut and in Zaporozhye direction, they methodically try to breach Russian defenses, and sometimes they are successful. And as a result of these combat activities in the last 24 hours, as you can see from this map, Ukrainians advanced just a little bit closer to Novoprokopivka. And according to the director of analysis of the US Defense Intelligence, Trent Moll, he sees a pretty big possibility for Ukrainians to entirely breach Russian defenses, at least in the Zaporozhye frontline, expand it and start liberating territories faster than before. Because as we mentioned previously, if you remember from my yesterday's video, the first line of defense of Russians was the most fortified one, with the second and the third one being less defended by Russians, at least as we speak. And what is the response by Russians, you might ask? Well, unfortunately, you might guessed it, they attacked once again a civilian object, and this time the target was another local marketplace located in Kryvyi Rog. But just overall in the last 24 hours, Ukrainians were able to intercept 16 out of 20 Russian Shahed drones. Just a couple of last words from the south of Ukraine before we move to the east. And so first of all, if you also remember, Russians started doing their fake elections on temporarily occupied territories of Ukraine. And so, only 3 minutes after the election points they opened, the attendance in some regions, such as for example Kherson, already reached, pay attention here, 53.1%. And yes, you heard me right, more than half of Kherson region voted in less than 3 minutes. According to Russians at least. But you know what, potentially it is possible, because right here is the video from Oleshki, where Russian soldiers literally go door to door and ask local residents, while pointing guns at them, to vote in these Russian elections. And if you do not vote for whatever they ask you to vote, according to them, you will go straight to jail. But obviously the actual local residents, Ukrainians, they do not want to participate in this literal scam. That is why they throw their invitations for their voting stations. And another pretty interesting thing that Russians came up with is that you're a man potentially eligible for military service, you will need to also take your military-related documents to the voting stations and also some reference notes from your doctor to see if you're in a good health condition. I can only guess why would they need such documents. But for now, just keep in mind these fake elections, because something extremely interesting related to them happened in the east of Ukraine, and we'll talk about it in less than 2 minutes. But before, let's make 2 quick stops on the territory of Russia. The first one will be obviously in the capital, Moscow, where the building of the Federal Customs Service spontaneously, as always, got caught on fire. As we move down closer to the territory of Ukraine to another region, Bryansk, another local factory of microelectronics, which was also used in the military equipment by Russians, also spontaneously got caught on fire. And so what Russians do to protect themselves? Well, they continue to put car tires on their planes, as you can see from this new picture, which shows in much details how this protection kind of works. But okay, now as promised, let's go to the east of Ukraine. First of all, as always, we refer to the report by the Institute for the Study of War, which means that Russians and Ukrainians, they continue their combat activities along Kupiansk-Svatovo Kreminna front line. Then we have a video allegedly from Luhansk region, which shows us Ukrainians using GML-RS missiles to destroy a small convoy of Russian tanks, which was delivering their own missiles for Russian K-52 helicopters. Then right here is yet another video by Azov Brigade, which shows us the destruction of a Russian tank. But it does not end here, because Ukrainians once again, using a simple cheap drone, were able to severely damage or potentially even destroy another ultra-modern tank of Russians, T-90M Prorыв. But wait, there is more. It was a pretty good drone for Ukrainians, because they were able to destroy also an armored personnel carrier of Russians, along with the infantry inside, yes, using drone. But without a doubt, the most significant event of the last days is that Ukrainians were able to do another ambush against Russians in Bakhmut, as you will be able to see from this video. Unfortunately, this is as much as I can show you right here on YouTube, but full version will be on my Patreon. The link is down below, there is still 1 week of free access. And speaking about Bakhmut, something else pretty interesting happened. We have right here this video allegedly by 3 Russian soldiers, and the guy said that this is everything left of his squadron. And then he says that because these elections started in occupied territories of Ukraine, those Chechens, Kadyrov Chechens, which were supposedly need to protect their flanks, they were transported somewhere to safety to take part in these elections. But I do need to acknowledge that this video does look pretty suspicious, because these 3 allegedly Russian soldiers, they look pretty clean to me in the brand new uniforms, and you cannot see their full faces. But just in case this is true, this shows you how much actually Russian leadership cares about annexing these territories and making it look like that there is a legitimate elections going on, rather than to actually protecting the lives of their own soldiers. And even the president of Chechnya, Ramzan Kadyrov, swiftly responded by making his own statement, basically claiming that this is a fake news, these are not Russians, these are Ukrainians dressed as Russian soldiers. So I'll leave it up to you who you want to believe. Right, now just a couple of last words from the east of Ukraine, and then we'll talk about the next Putin's mobilization and Russian kids being prepared for war. And first of all, as you can see from this map, Russians were able to capture back some land to the north of Kurdyumivka. But as you go a little bit to the north, according to the representative of Ukrainian army Maxim Zhorin, Ukrainians already have pretty comfortable control of at least half Klishchiivka. They still continue to pressure Russians, and then those Russians, while retreating, most of them they try to go down to Andriivka and the previously mentioned Kurdyumivka. And even more important news comes to us a little bit more south of this area, right here in Opatne, about which we were talking yesterday. And so right here, as you can see, Ukrainians were able to liberate a little bit more territory and advance just a little bit closer to Donetsk airport, which allows us to safely assume that this small front line also became relatively active, just like the ones in Zaporozhye and in Klishchiivka/Bakhmut. And as you can see, at this point Russians are pretty much stuck, and all they do right now is to do everything possible not to lose already captured territories. But the human force is rapidly deteriorating. That is why Russia will need, unfortunately, another mobilization, and Putin knows it. And just to show you that the probability of another partial mobilization is pretty high, and it might even happen very soon, much sooner even than most of us expect, first of all is the statement by Viktor Sobolev, the representative of Russian government, who said that those ex-Wagner soldiers right now they can either become civilians, I highly doubt they can become just civilians, or they can do new contracts with the Ministry of Defense of Russia. Then we have even more assumptions both by Ukrainian and Western intelligence that in case Putin is announcing mobilization, it should happen somewhere in the second half or the last third of September. And the reason for this, it is because Russia will have the elections, which already started a little bit earlier on the temporary occupied territories of Ukraine, and these elections most likely will be fake ones. The pro-Putin government party will most likely win. And Putin will most likely need their support. It is not like that he will ever listen to anyone, but just to make it kinda look official what is about to happen. And the second reason, it is because in Russia, every single education, either it's kindergarten, school or universities, it always starts in the beginning of September, which basically means a lot of eligible Russian men, they have to come back to Russia, start their studies, and once again potentially be drafted into the army. And just a couple of days ago, this document was found, which is the order by the Ministry of Defense of Russia, Sergei Shoigu, about the mobilization of 200,000 people, dated from September 11th, which is in less than 2 days. It is not yet fully confirmed whether this document is real or not, but just to tip the scales in the direction of reality, we have Andrei Kartapolov. Every single time he was refuting something in the past, all of this came true. And this time he did exactly the same, claiming that this order by Sergei Shoigu is nothing but a fake news. And honestly, even the Russian kids already started feeling the potential consequences, because whenever we graduate from high school, we have this one country-wide exam, and one of the potential exams that you can take is the social studies. Well, from this year, they decided to eliminate such topics as international law, democracy and socium. Kinda looks suspicious, right? And besides that, and you already probably heard about it, the school kids of all ages, starting all the way from elementary school, they have now new classes, such as for example how to save a life, how to deconstruct Kalashnikov, the reason why Russia had to start this special military operation, and just the basics of military training. And even some special so-called cyber schools, like this one called Вознесение, recently opened, and one of the main focuses for the kids to study there will be to learn military-related stuff, such as for example the operation of drones, their construction, and once again just the course of combat activities. If that's not preparing the Russian youth for potential combat activities whenever they become of a legal age, I don't know what else is. And during the next 8-10 years when they'll be growing, this propaganda will completely brainwash their minds, so probably you will not even need to do the forceful partial mobilization. Well, that's the state of things in Russia right now, so just please let me know in the comments what do you think, and if you don't mind, please subscribe to my channel if you like this style of daily updates. Thank you so much to all my Patreons, and see you on Tuesday.